Hi there, I thought I'd do a video this morning, a bit of a Q&A from some of the comments that I've had on my last few videos, or the last video actually, and just maybe a little mini update. I did put a video up on Tuesday and today is Saturday, so it's been 4 weeks yesterday since I kind of ramped up the carbs in my diet. If you've not been here before, I was on a carnivore diet for 3.5 years. In the last few months of those 3.5 years, I'd started to kind of reintroduce some pumpkin. I've been eating pumpkin maybe a couple of times a week, mainly because we had it in the garden. But I also wanted to see how my body responded to that, and it was good. The results were good in the way that I felt and the way that my digestive system was. And I'd also been eating some berries off and on, which I kind of have off and on through my carnivore journey anyway, mostly blueberries. And then 4 weeks ago I decided to, after much consideration, I've been thinking about this for a while, to have a go at kind of really ramping up the carbs and lowering the fat and seeing how my body responds to that. And the reason for that, I have got a video that I did probably three or four videos back explaining why, and I will I'll pop a link to that up here in the cards if you want to go and watch that. But yeah, let's get on to the comments. Honestly, one of the hardest things that I have found with doing this is the comments and the backlash that I'm getting from some of the carnivore community for doing this. Some of it's quite nasty, and it's frustrating because I'll get people who, like this commenter whose questions I'm going to read out, they obviously come on, watch one video, and they've never watched any of my other videos, so they don't understand where I've been and why I'm doing this, and obviously haven't gone and had a look at that. So this person whose comments I'm going to read here, it's a really long comment with quite a number of questions in it. I said to them on there, because I try and answer all my questions on YouTube, and I think there's a few I miss and some replies that I miss, obviously, but I said to them, go back and watch some of my earlier videos and that'll answer all your questions, because people who haven't followed my journey have got no idea kind of what I've been through on the carnivore diet, and that I have stuck it out even though things weren't going well for me for a lot of that time. I'm nothing if not, determined and resilient and pretty bloody stubborn. And so, I've listened to all sorts of carnivore influencers over the 3.5 years, and all the carnivore doctors, and I know all the stuff. And so to change trajectory like this is actually quite difficult, and I've done it in the past. I used to be vegan and I was vegetarian for years, and then to go to an all meat diet was quite a big mindset shift, and now to be going back to eating huge amounts of carbs is a mindset shift as well. But I am willing to experiment and learn and see how my body responds, because carnivore wasn't doing it for me, and I will talk about that more as I'm answering some of these questions. So the first one here in this person's comment says, it sounds like you're eating a diet that will long-term result in insulin resistance and other issues. Now, it might sound like that if you believe that carbs are the cause of insulin resistance on their own. If you listen to the carnivore doctors and doctors in the keto space, they would have you believe that that's the case. But I have been, as I said, 3.5 years on a carnivore diet with zero or very small amounts of carbohydrates, different times. Even when I was eating carbs, it was generally under 20 grams a day. And yet I'm still insulin resistant. I had a fasting insulin test done, I don't know, a couple of months ago now, probably 2 or 3 months ago. My HOMA IR was 4.16. If you don't know what that is, go and Google it. It's a measure of insulin resistance, and 4.16 is quite bad. Now, while I was on the carnivore diet, I had experimented with all sorts of different ways of eating within that carnivore space. I have tried everything you can think of within that. And when I was, I've done a high-fat version of carnivore at least a couple of times that I remember. And one of those times I didn't plan it this way, but I had done a fasting insulin test just before I started. And then I ramped up my fat, lowered my protein. So I was doing between 80-20 and 90-10 with the fat to protein ratio. So with what we're taught in the carnivore space, you would think that the gluconeogenesis would be lower and fat being higher. You know, everything should be wonderful. I was eating that way for 8 weeks. And then I went and had another fasting insulin test, expecting my insulin to have improved. And it had got worse, quite a lot worse. It had gone, I think, from 10 up to about 15 or 16, something like that. So it had got quite a lot worse. And that confused me. I spoke about that in the videos at the time. That really confused me, and I didn't know why it happened. And so I stopped the high-fat carnivore diet and went back to eating my normal, which was normally around 70-30, as is, you know, with most people on carnivore. As I said, I've experimented with all sorts of different ratios, and I went back to that. Now, you know, as I said, 3.5 years later, I'm still insulin resistant, still overweight, still got about 20 kilos to lose, and basically pre-diabetic. So that's why I'm making the change. And I know that it sounds nuts to be reintroducing, you know, 250, 300 grams of carbs a day to try to reverse this, but there is more to it, and the information that's shared within the carnivore space isn't all there is, and that's obvious when you look at what's going on in the carnivore space now. Look at Dr. Kiltz and Dr. Lisa Wiedemann. She's 16 years carnivore and has gone back to eating carbs because she was gaining weight. Her blood glucose was too high. She hasn't spoken about her insulin. I don't know whether she's had her insulin tested or had it tested. Dr. Kiltz is getting, you know, calcium in his arteries. His CAT scan was getting worse, and he had some other stuff going on as well. So, and within my comments, if you look at the comments under my videos, you will see people on there who have been, I've had so many comments from people who have been carnivore for, you know, anything from a few months up to, you know, 3, 4, 8, 9 years, and reintroducing carbs because their blood glucose is going too high, thyroids are tanking, their just metabolic health isn't good. And initially they were fine, and then over time, and it probably depends on genetics, on our specific version of our carnivore diets, as to how long that might take for things to, you know, basically turn to shit. But it is happening for people, and when you look at all of these comments, you can't, to try and deny that it's happening, it's just crazy. It is happening, and so it needs to be looked at, because otherwise you've got people sailing along on their carnivore diets, ignoring little symptoms and things that are going on, maybe not tracking their blood glucose, maybe not looking at their insulin, you know, just not having a CAT scan. They're just eating their meat, and then one day things might get bad. It's happened to, there's a lady I've been talking to on X, her name is Tara, I can't remember what her surname is. She was carnivore for 9 years and ended up having to have a triple bypass, and she now has reintroduced some carbs and stuff. So it happens, and as I've said before, the whole thing's an experiment. This is not the way people eat their carnivore diets today, and the way we live is not the way our ancestors lived, and not the way that they ate. So to try and convince people that is the way their ancestors lived and ate is just, it's not right. Okay, so that's my beliefs around this now. And don't get me wrong, I love the carnivore diet. I didn't want to stop. It's so easy, it's so satisfying, tastes great, but I'm not going to just blindly keep going and following and doing it and ending up with pre-diabetes or having a heart attack or something like that. So this is why I'm creating this change and experimenting. This is an experiment. I mean, I can go back to carnivore if I want to at any point, and I will probably do that through the winter, because I think I've mentioned in my last video, the one before, I mean, my ideal is to eat seasonally and to eat still a high meat diet, but to eat some of the fruits and things that are in season, you know, through the summer and fall and whatever. So the next question that this person's got on here is, why would you eat rice? He mentions the rice a couple of times, or he or she. I'm assuming it's a he, but it could be a she. Why would you eat rice? That's a simple carbohydrate that will push your blood sugar up. And then they ask why I'm eating rice, because I don't think your ancestors ate a lot of rice. I can understand incorporating a small amount of seasonal organic fruit, but I don't think your ancestors ate rice. So my ancestors definitely didn't eat rice. My ancestors ate a lot of oats. I am about 80% Scottish, or I'm over 80% Scottish, and then the rest is Irish. That's the only DNA that's in my body. So I am Celtic through and through, closer to 100% than probably most people. And so my ancestors ate a lot of potatoes once potatoes were available in Ireland. And I know that they weren't, long way back, but they were introduced and they were eaten for a long time in Ireland. And oats were the same in Scotland and in Ireland, I think. And I actually did try having some oats last weekend, and it went quite well. I fermented them for 3 days. That part didn't go well because I ended up with a massive histamine flare the next day, and just like hay fever, runny nose, eyes and everything. So I fermented them for too long. But it went well. My digestive system was fine with them. And I actually really like oats. We only buy organic, so hopefully avoiding the glyphosate, because hubby's eating those. And I did a video about that a few days ago. But yeah, so oats are traditional. Now rice, I'm eating that because my digestive system is quite happy with rice. And the reason that I'm eating it is I had a heap of it here in the pantry. It's cheap, it's easy to come by. There's not a lot of fruit around in New Zealand at this time of the year. So the rice is just a way of getting my body to adapt to carbohydrates. So doing this is going to take time. So as I said, I'm 4 weeks in. It will take probably 3 months for my body to adapt to using carbohydrates properly. It's the same as when we go onto a carnivore diet. It takes time for our body to adapt. Your microbiome has to adapt. Your body needs to adapt to running on a different fuel. And so that's basically where I'm at. And so 4 weeks in, I'm kind of through the first phase of that. Today, I'm having my first day without rice. And my breakfast this morning was just fruit. I had grapefruit juice that I had squeezed. I get grapefruits from my son's place, which are glorious. But I think I had too much of a mixture. My belly wasn't 100% happy afterwards. It let me know that there wasn't quite happy. I may have eaten, I had some longan that I had in the freezer, and that's not something I've eaten for years. Enjoyed them, but maybe my belly just didn't like those. I don't know if there was something about my breakfast this morning that it wasn't 100% happy with. But all good now. It didn't take long to settle. But yeah, I may just have to make my breakfast more simpler or more cooked fruits if I'm going to move on to just fruit. I may have to, stew my apples and pears and things rather than having them raw for a while until everything kind of settles down. So, and they said, why would you eat rice? This is a simple carbohydrate that will push my blood sugar up. And yes, it will. It will push my blood sugar up. But what I'm finding already 4 weeks in, as I've spoken about, is that my blood sugar spikes and then it comes down lower, and it's been steadily lower before my next meals, basically, than it ever was on Carnivore. It's my fasting glucose on Carnivore was pretty much always over 6. And I'm at the moment down around 5.1 to 5.5 usually. It's been down as low as 4.9 and even 4.7, I think. So it's definitely lower than it was on Carnivore. The only times, quite often before my next meal, so I eat and it's probably about 5 hours until my next meal, and I'll test my glucose usually just before I eat. It's not unusual now for my glucose to be well under 5, so it might be 4.4, 4.3, 4.7. The only times that ever went that low on Carnivore was when I was over 36 hours fasted, or if I was doing, like when I did a sardine fast or an egg fast. That's the only times that my blood glucose actually got that low. All right, so what's the next question? Why would you eat lean proteins? We evolved to eat fatty meat. That's where our bodies and our brains need. So the lean meat is because the fat is what was keeping my insulin up. And all that's what it appears to be. Okay, so it appears that the fat is keeping my insulin up. Now, fat blocks the insulin receptors on the cells. This is the reason, like the whole paradigm around fat is that it stops the spike after you eat food, after you eat carbs, right? So if you eat fat, it stops that big spike. But what it does, what it can do, is that it stops that spike, but it keeps the blood glucose higher for longer. And so because it blocks the insulin receptors on the cells, so when that happens, your body's pumping out more and more insulin because it's trying to reduce your blood glucose. So there's more insulin being pumped out over a longer period of time, and so that keeps the insulin resistance going. And I'm fairly sure that that's what's been happening in my body. That's the only explanation for what's been happening. Because even, I've thought at different times, maybe I just eat too much protein, and that's why I did the high fat and low protein carnivore diet, a few times. But then I saw something yesterday that said that our bodies, the gluconeogenesis isn't based on how much protein we eat, it's based on our needs. So for some reason, my body was obviously needing more glucose. So I'm guessing that the whole, fat adaptation, your body burning fat for fuel, for some reason isn't happening efficiently in my body. And I know I'm not the only one, because this happens to other people as well. We evolved to eat fatty meat. That's what our bodies and brains need. Have we evolved for that? Have all of us evolved for that? My ancestors, as I said, come from Scotland and Ireland. And I know, like, my mother's into genealogy. She's gone a long way back in our history. On my mother's side, they were all fishermen. So they would have eaten a lot of seafood, which isn't high fat. And so is this the case for everyone? And then there's also the argument, which I have delved into a lot, that the wild animals are not high fat. In the really cold climates, maybe there are some, down, in the Arctic and that. But in a lot of the world, the wild animals, even pigs and that, were much lower fat than our commercial domestic farmed animals that are farmed now. Wild deer are low in fat, the wild sheep and wild goats and the bison that the wild cattle that our cows have originated from were much lower fat than these modern ones. So have we evolved to eat that much fat? Some people obviously seem to do okay on it, at least for, a few years or whatever, but maybe not all of us. Our genetics are all different, and some of our genetics are more damaged through our ancestral line than others as well, because that's the whole thing. There's all these genetic variations, things that shouldn't be the way that they are, that make a difference to the way our bodies process food and create energy and everything else. So next one. I don't understand why you would eat the diet that has objectively been proven to reduce lifespan. Now, this is something that I have to go, really? Has a clean diet of, meat and organic produce been shown to reduce lifespan? I don't think so. A diet of ultra-processed foods, carbs with chemicals and additives and flavorings, and seed oils and all the modern garbage have been shown to reduce lifespan for sure. But like my grandmother on my father's side, she lived until she was 99 3/4. If she hadn't been in a home for the last decade or so of her life, she would probably have easily made 100. But her diet was, she didn't eat much meat. She ate a little bit of meat, not a whole lot. She ate oats. She always had cooked, like stewed fruit, apples, and whatever fruit was in season in the fridge. She smoked from the age of 30 until the age of 80. She gave up smoking when she was 80. Her idea of sport was sitting doing a crossword with a cigarette and a cup of tea. And her idea of a good meal was a biscuit and a cup of tea and a cigarette. So you know, that's a pretty good lifespan for someone who was objectively eating the diet that's proven to reduce lifespan and smoking cigarettes. You know? So there's people all around the world who eat plants who live, you know, very long lifespans. I don't know of any 100% carnivores that have lived to over 100. If you can point one of those out, I mean, it might happen because of this, you know, surgence with people eating this way. But, you know, if you can show me someone who has eaten a 100% carnivore diet that's, you know, over 90, then sing out. I'd like to actually see that. And again, I'm not knocking the carnivore diet. I'm just saying there's so many questions, and it was all an experiment. All right, so what was the next one? Oh, why would you use ChatGTP and call it a good resource when there is objectively, this person likes objectively the word, extremely biased and possibly one of the worst resources you could use? Could you explain the motivation behind this? I've had a few people saying, questioning me on the whole ChatGTP thing. Now, ChatGTP is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I actually saw some people talking about it on X yesterday. Somebody said that it's like having a friend who's constantly drunk but a genius, and it is a little bit like that. And someone else who made a comment, and I can't remember what exactly it said because it's on my phone, so I can't read it. But the way I think about ChatGTP is it's an easy way. So I said it was not biased, and I've had a lot of people going, of course it's biased. What I actually meant was, if I ask somebody who, you know, a human, about diet, they're generally going to give me an answer based on their beliefs. So, you know, within the carnivore community, we have a lot of very biased influencers. The carnivore doctors all have businesses that are relying on their beliefs and their information that they're putting out around the carnivore diet. And you can guarantee they're making a lot of money out of that. So are they biased? Hell yeah, they're biased. The ChatGTP, if you ask the questions the right way, you can get some really good information out of ChatGTP. And then I don't take ChatGTP's information as gospel. I'll go off and do my own research, but it gives me a starting point sometimes, or a finishing point, because, you know, you have to have some understanding of what you're asking about to know whether it's giving you good information or not. And I have that understanding because I do my research elsewhere. I mean, the start of that conversation on X yesterday, somebody put up a thing saying, you know, me asking ChatGTP, are these berries poisonous? And ChatGTP comes back and goes, no, they're great. They're great for human health, and they're going to help your digestive system. And then me saying, ChatGTP, I'm in hospital, the berries were poisonous. Oh, yes, of course they're poisonous. Do you want me to list another 10 poisonous fruits that you can find in the bush, kind of thing? And that is the way ChatGTP is. And, you know, there's no way that I'd be asking ChatGTP if a food is safe to eat. It's just, you need to have some understanding of what you're actually asking about. And so, I mean, ChatGTP, I've been putting in my husband's genetic variations and my genetic variations in there and gleaning some info from ChatGTP, but I already know a fair bit about those variations. I'll go and check other online sources, and then ChatGTP has given me suggestions with regards to our supplement regimen based on those genetic variations. And so I'll go and I'll check those out and see whether what it's telling me is correct and whether it's something that I actually want to follow. So when I say unbiased, I just mean that it's giving me information that isn't being steered by a human being's beliefs or financial interests. I hope that makes sense. All right, so next question. When you were doing carnivore, were you doing it strictly? If you were eating lean protein, that's part of the problem. If we're not eating carbohydrates, we have to get sufficient fat for our energy needs. As I've already said, I have tried every single version of the carnivore diet that you can think of. I have done high fat, low fat, moderate fat. I have done dairy, no dairy. I have done the lion diet a couple of times. Couldn't do that because my bowel just wouldn't let me, but I stuck with it for 3 weeks and just didn't feel good at all. And so, yeah, I have tried every version of carnivore. I've had it with seafood, without seafood. I've, done only ruminant meats, everything. That there's with eggs, without eggs, everything. And then I've done sardine fasts and egg fasts and tried everything that you could possibly throw at me in the 3.5 years that I was on the carnivore diet. And yes, of course, if we lower our fats, we need either fats or carbohydrates for fuel. And so that's why I am where I am, because the fats, I have become reasonably sure, have been part of the problem that's been keeping me insulin resistant. And my thought is, if I can improve my insulin resistance and become insulin sensitive, then I can increase my fat once my body's not broken anymore. So I have to find a way to reverse what is actually the problem in my body. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I recognize, so next thing is, I recognize that we're all different, that menopausal or postmenopausal women may need to alter our diet, but certainly not to the point of eating rice and concentrated sugars. Well, I've explained why that is, and they're just basically saying that I'm making a mistake and that the fruit these days is much sweeter and bears no resemblance to anything our ancestors ate. Depends on how far back you want to go. If you want to go back at least 10, 15,000 years, then yeah, the fruit that we're eating is probably similar to what our ancestors ate. And our ancestors in that time were pretty healthy, lived long lives, and our understanding of history is really probably fairly skewed anyway. I think we've been lied to a whole lot about our history, and so I don't actually believe a lot of what we're told about the way humans have lived, and the whole evolution thing and everything is all very questionable. But they want you to believe that, and so if you do, all good. All right. I would like to understand your motivation. I've just told you that. Talks about ChatGPT again. And wouldn't it be better to first modify your carnivore diet before experimenting with eating a lot of carbohydrates and simple sugars? Just told you about that. Done everything. 3.5 years. Stuck it out. Over 2 years of chronic diarrhea. Stuck it out. Did I experiment with going lying diet? I think they mean lion. Yes, just talked about that. Did I eat dairy? Off and on. Tried it with, tried it without. Did I use artificial sweeteners? I've never used artificial sweeteners. Do not like them. Was onto them right from the get-go. Have never really consumed artificial sweeteners. And yeah, thank you in advance for taking a moment to respond to my questions. So there you go. I've just responded to your questions. Another person has asked if I'm doing any resistance training or high intensity interval training to support blood sugar regulation. I've been gradually increasing my exercise as my energy has allowed. And because when I started with this, my energy was basically had flatlined because of the mold illness. So that was one of the things that I was dealing with when I first started with this. And now my energy is feeling so much better. I did a workout yesterday. It's probably the best one I've done in a long time. Did weight training. I got on my rebounder, did some skipping, did some yoga and flexibility stuff, and it went really, really well. So I'm really happy with the way that that's all going. And so yeah, so fitness has been a big part of my past. But when you look at me now, you wouldn't actually believe that unless you knew. So, and that's because my health had tanked, and so that's what I've been trying to recover. So now this person here there was another fairly long one. It says, Dr. Anthony Chaffee explains that inflammatory glucose from sugar and carbs it creates as much dopamine spiking in the addiction centers of our brain as meth, heroin, and cocaine. Of course, this makes us feel good temporarily. And this person's talking about what all the different doctors have said. Now, as I've said, those doctors have definite financial interests in the sharing of this information. I personally think that Dr. Chaffee is very one-eyed with all of this. I like Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker is more open to other things. Sometimes, depends. Sometimes, but I mean, when he went away to Europe just recently, he was eating all sorts of stuff. Came back looking like crap and feeling like crap. But was that because of what he was eating, or was it because his body isn't used to using carbs? It's probably a mixture of both. So that's something that people, when they try carbs after they've been eating low carb or carnivore for, keto or carnivore for a long time, don't realize is that it actually takes time to adapt. So you're going to feel not great if you try carbs for a few days until your body adapts. So that's just one of those things. It says, this person also said, we know diabetes is caused by eating or drinking too much sugar and carbs that spikes insulin produced by our pancreas, eventually wearing it out, leading to diabetes. Do we know that? There are studies that show that to be the case, and there are studies that show otherwise. There are a lot of N=1 experiments out there of people with diabetes who have cured it by lowering their fat and upping their carbs. I have a copy of a video in there that I've had for years, a DVD that was done. I can't remember the doctor's name, but this was when I was vegan and into all the vegan stuff. The video is called Simply Raw, where they took a group of, 6 or 8 people that had incurable diabetes to a cabin somewhere out in the wilderness, and they fed them a raw vegan diet for 30 days, and some of them, most of them had at least reduced their medication very quickly. Some of them were off their medication completely. Some of them were completely cured by removing or reducing their fat intake and feeding them a raw vegan diet. Now, I'm not keen on a raw diet these days. I used to eat a raw vegan diet. I don't know that it's good, especially long term and in colder weather, and for your gut health. And Chinese medicine says it creates a damp spleen, qi, I think, something like that. So yeah, I think there's some issues with eating too much raw plant material. But in the short term, it made a difference to those people and basically cured their diabetes. So, and then of course there's the Dr. Walter Kempner with his rice diet and different things. So there's quite a lot of information out there that kind of shows the opposite of what that person is saying. So we don't know that for sure. Some people think that they do. What else have they said in here? This is ending up being a longer video than I had planned, but that's okay. Oh, it says a little damage over a long time adds up to a lot of damage. That's why we have a chronic disease and obesity epidemic. We have a chronic disease and obesity epidemic due to processed foods, ultra-processed foods, and all the chemicals in those. When we buy processed foods, even if we look at the ingredient label, we have no idea really what's in that. I've had this experience recently with a product here in New Zealand. Meat patties made by Silver Fern Farms. They contain, when you look at the ingredients, they contain meat, so beef. Sometimes they have lamb. Sometimes they have venison, depending on which ones you buy. Collagen, salt and pepper. That's what's on the ingredient labels, and yet they give me diarrhea. And so there's something else in there, because I eat all 4 of those ingredients without issue. But those meat patties, it took me a long time to work this out. Those meat patties give me diarrhea. So there's something else in there, or something with the way that it's been processed. Part of the problems with processed foods as well is powders. So when foods are powdered, they have a different effect on our metabolism and on our blood glucose and insulin and all the rest of it. And then there's all the other things. There's EMFs, there's plastics, there's stress, there's driving in traffic, there's our screens and the news, and work, doing jobs that we hate, and the coatings on our cookware, and the plastics in our clothing, and pharmaceutical drugs. People are taking bloody vaccines that are full of aluminium and God knows what, that mess people up. There's all of these things that are contributing to the obesity and health epidemic. It's not the meat and the fat and the fruits and the vegetables, especially when those fruits and vegetables aren't covered in chemical residues, So, because people ate those things 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and were healthy and living over 100 years. So it's not those things. All right, so what else? I get on a little bit of a rant with this stuff, but it's just because I feel quite passionately about it, that people just try to look at a little piece of something and go, it's that. That's what it is. It's the carbs. The carbs are dangerous. They're going to kill you, and that's what it is. And it's not the carbs. The carbs are a food and an energy source. It's all the other shite that goes with them and everything else that we're exposed to. All right. It says in here they've got plant and animal genetics and biology are entirely different and mostly incompatible. We are animals and need animal material to maintain all animal parts. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, because we're animals. Cows are animals. Do cows need animal parts or animals in their diet? No. So, yeah, I don't know. I know that don't get on to my case about the digestive system. Know exactly how the digestive system works, and I know that our bodies are designed to use both fuels, glucose and fat, and that's why our bodies make glucose, because our bodies need glucose. So, sugar and carbs or fruits and vegetables are starvation foods, and yeah, they possibly are to an extent, but we've always eaten them, and so do they have a part to play in keeping us healthy? I kind of suspect that maybe they do. Meat was hoarded by rulers like kings in the past to us. I don't know whether that's the case, because there's plenty of meat in the supermarket so far anyway. So far they're trying to outprice it out of our reach, but yeah, so far it's still there. What else? It's a beautiful day. It's a glorious day. That's why I'm sitting outside doing this. And then this person goes on to talk about the elites and all the corruption and everything else and the bad information. And I agree with that completely. And I have to wonder whether some of that bad information, because they've put out information to confuse us, and this is part of the problem. This is why there's studies on both sides. You can cherry pick your studies. This is why there are people out there saying, eat this way, eat this way, eat this way, telling you what to do. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm telling you what I'm doing, and you can take that or leave it. But there are a lot of people out there telling people what to do and what they should be eating. And so when they're doing that, I have to question, is that because that is what they believe, or what they're being paid to say? Because that's a question these days as well. Now, I have been speaking to a lady on X. Her name is Tara, and I can't remember her surname. I don't know whether I already mentioned this earlier. She had a triple bypass after 9 years on the carnivore diet. So I find that interesting, and I might have already said, but these are things that need to be looked at, because these are people's real experiences, and so people need to actually be open enough to question whether their beliefs, because a belief is only a thought you keep on thinking. You have to question where your beliefs came from. So who instilled those beliefs in you? Is it from watching, Mountains of Dr. Chafee and Dr. Berry? So why are you handing your belief system over to them? Why are you taking everything that they say? It's because they're doctors, I know. For a lot of people have been brainwashed into believing that doctors are smarter than them. People want to hand over their responsibility to someone else, a doctor or whoever. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that's something that needs to change, because we've been doing that for a long time, and that's what's really got people on this planet in the shit. Because we just want someone, we want to hand it all over, be told it's all going to be okay, pat you on the back. It's all going to be okay. We'll look after it, and we'll look after you and make sure that you're safe, and and so people want that reassurance. And part of the thing with the carnivore diet, which I'm fully aware of in myself, is you start on it and you think, this is the answer. I'm safe forever on this diet. And I don't think that that's the case. And to have that, I know that it's comforting to have that belief, but is that belief actually valid? Or should we be looking at all of these other people like myself who are having these supposedly unusual effects on the carnivore diet and saying, is that relevant to me? Maybe I should be testing my insulin. I don't think I mentioned it on the beginning of this video. I've just been having a conversation with a lady on X, which got a little bit kind of wild. She's supposedly an orthopedic doctor. Doesn't say that in her bio or anything, but she's made a comment on there about being a doctor, and so that's why she can read studies better than me, because she's been to college for 15 years. But I asked her 3 times, I might have already said this, I asked her 3 times whether she'd had a fasting insulin test, and she didn't answer me. So I'm assuming that she didn't, and I said that to her, I said, I'm assuming that means that you haven't, and that's probably because your medical education didn't teach you about insulin or the value of having a fasting insulin test. And a lot of people on the carnivore diet aren't testing their fasting insulin, and so their insulin can be going up and they can be heading towards diabetes potentially and not even know. So, you know, this is just things that are not discussed enough and probably need to be. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that I have started taking taurine and glycine. So I've been taking it now for, I think this is the 3rd day. I've taken taurine in the past when I was on carnivore. Somebody mentioned it in a comment, and I took it for a while and then I stopped. I don't remember it having any profound effects on anything when I took it before, but this is one of the things that ChatGPT's come up with based on my genetics and my husband's genetics. And so we started taking it, and it does seem to be making a difference to my blood glucose. It's taking it down a little bit, so I'm not having as much of a spike after I eat, which I think is probably a good thing. And the glycine helps. They both help with relaxation. They help to calm the whole anxiety side of things, which has been an issue for me like my whole life, and help with sleep and all the rest of it. So as I said with ChatGPT, you know, it suggests that I go off and I have a look and I remind myself what taurine does and what glycine does, and then make a decision about whether I want to start taking it. And so we are taking that because we both have, that's the other thing, we both have slow MAOA genes, and so these help with the too much serotonin and other neurotransmitters. And they also, that's right, yeah, taurine helps to improve insulin sensitivity and glucose regulation, so that's why it's helping with my blood glucose, inflammation and oxidative stress, cardiovascular and fluid balance as well. So it helps with electrolytes. So hubby had been having massive problems with cramp in his hands. He's always had kind of cramp issues, but they got really bad over the last 12 months, really bad on his hands in particular, because he does wood carving and he'd be trying to do something and his hands would just start cramping up. He'd get so frustrated, he'd just go and sit down and watch videos because he couldn't do anything. And he was taking mountains of magnesium, and then we got him onto taking salt, you know, Sole, and that seemed to help. But since we've been reintroducing more carbs, because he was, as I've spoken about before, he was eating basically the same diet as me, but he would have also the sourdough bread, that 72-hour fermented organic sourdough bread that we make for him here at home, and honey. Now, so he was probably having about 80 grams of carbs a day in those, so he wouldn't be classed as, you know, carnivore keto, but low carb. So he'd been low carb for 3.5 years, and he was having sort of more issues, which I spoke about in a video as well just recently. And so those things seem to be improving for him as well. The cramp has definitely improved, even with the addition of the pumpkin and more fruit. That had improved for him, I guess, because his carbs were already up a bit, so it just probably increased it up to the, you know, over the 100-gram mark a day at that point. But he's eating even more now, not as much as me, but he is eating more. Yeah, we had a pretty wild experience the first night taking the glycine. We both had some really wild dreams. They kind of went on and on and on, but that seems to have settled down. And glycine, so I've suspected before too that hubby has been deficient in glycine. He startles really easy. Like he'll walk around, yesterday he walked around the corner and I'm sitting on the couch and he jumps, and that can be a glycine deficiency. And so we had him on collagen for a while, you know, powdered collagen, and then stopped that. I don't know whether it helped or not, I can't remember. But yeah, so the glycine can help with that kind of startle reflex, and then he had, you know, other symptoms that, you know, to do with his detox pathways and that, which I spoke about in the other video. I'll kind of link to that up here if I remember. But if not, it's a couple of videos back. So it helps your body to make glutathione and helps with your detox pathways. And both taurine and glycine help to form bile salts. So they help with digestion and help with, the liver and stuff. So I'll pop some links down below the video to the supplements if you want to check out taurine and glycine. And yeah, so they help to also balance blood sugar and with methylation balance and stuff, because that's an issue for us both as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I was going to talk about today. So there's just a few questions. I'll probably do some more Q&A videos, but I might try and make them shorter. It's just that these were really long comments with a lot of questions, so I thought I'll address these in a video. So this ended up being quite long. I don't know how long I've been on here for. So yeah, so if you have any comments or questions, do pop those below the video and I will try and get to those or address them in an upcoming Q&A. There's a lot of interest in this topic, it seems, right now, and a lot of people who are reintroducing carbs back. I think because the carnivore diet has become such a big thing over the last few years, it's just hit that tipping point where there's a lot of people who are struggling and finding that they're having problems. I've noticed in the comments that a lot of these people have been on it about the same amount of time as me, 3 or 4 years. So maybe that's a thing, whereas other people can go longer before they start having issues. And then there might be some people out there who can do it forever and not have issues. Who knows? I think that also there's people who are on the carnivore diet who are eating carbs, but just not telling anybody. And that happens. It's happened in the vegan community as well, because people, their whole financial business is based around that diet, and so they just do it on the sly and don't tell anyone. So yeah, that's just a thing. It's kind of human nature, the whole biased, financially driven stuff. And if you want to find out why I've started eating the higher carb diet, you can check that out here.